All right, I am Matt,
I'm John.
and this is part one of our kind of last minute thrown together expansion draft preview slash uh, a mini draft here. So what we're going to do is we're going through the 15 teams that have posted their protected list as they currently stand. Edits have been happening left and right. It's kind of a crazy time right now. We're going to go through and maybe discuss who we think might be the best picks or who we think the pick will be. These picks are in a vacuum, at least from my point of view. I'm not really worried about cap hit as I'm going through these picks, and I'm also not worried about position based off of what I've already picked. So I did do a little depth chart at the end of this, and holy crap, I went pretty heavy on defense. The Ducks, if everything stays as it is, the Ducks could wind up with a really solid defense here. But so hopefully the rest of the league exposes some forwards for Oregon to take. But yeah, do you want to get into it, John?
Yeah, let's do it.
Sweet. So starting off with the commish Philly. I went with so there's a name, Ghost is out there. He's kind of had a fall from grace, but he's a name. He's recognizable, so I put him as one of the potential guys that could be taken. And then so I think that's Aiden Hill with was it Arizona. He had some flashes this year, but I think for me this has to be Tyler Myers.
Yeah, and those were definitely the three I was looking at. I think the thing that came across to me was that Aiden Hill is very likely to get picked up by Seattle this year. And so he's on a bridge deal right now. You re-sign him up and keep him for a few more years. Hope he goes to Seattle and picks it up a bit.
Well, yeah, I mean, if he winds up being the starter in Seattle, well, you probably know more about this being that it's going to be your team, so you know more about the potential guys that are going to be going your way. But if he winds up getting, maybe shared starts or being the full time starter, that could be a pretty decent card. But I think as it stands right now, with what you have going forward with Tyler Myers, he's an established NHLer. He's getting a ton of minutes, 8 stamina, decent card, uh, 80 defense. I think that's a solid pick. Can't be upset about that.
I'd also like to preface this by saying I'm definitely more the prospect guy. You're definitely the established NHLer. Uh, at least as far as the thought process goes for who you would prefer on a team.
Oh yeah, definitely. I've always been in win now mode, whether or not I'm actually able to win now, or if my team's dog shit. Which
That's what we go
it's
for.
it's kind of it's kind of hit or miss for me. Um, uh, but yeah, it's you're definitely looking at just kind of going off on a tangent here, but looking at your team, the amount of expansion exempt you have, and some of the other teams in the league is kind of ridiculous. But yeah, you guys are. There's some teams here are all about prospects, and there are some teams that are more about what can you do for me now, and I fall into that bucket. Moving on to Baltimore, this one was tricky for me. Um, Baltimore is one of these teams where he had just the right amount of protection slots to protect who he really needed to protect, and then after that it kind of just falls off a cliff. You got Wayne Simmons, he's got a card. Philip Deneau's got a card. I went with Caro Tanner. He doesn't really have much of a card, but in terms of, I mean, he's cheap as hell. So it's one of those things where if Cap did come into it, that's an option. And I just kind of threw it at the wall, threw a dart at the wall. And went, oh, Caro Tanner. But I would say, because I'm pretty sure you're going to bring it up, but that was it the RFA Frederick Gauthier.
Julian
That's
Guthrie.
that's yeah, that's probably one that I would keep on my eye as well. But I went with my first instinct. I'm going to go Caro Tanner here.
Yeah, and I don't know if that's how you pronounce his name. I'm just gonna go with Guthrie. Uh, I feel like he's gonna be bumped up a little bit on the depth chart, and he'll probably get a little bit better card next year. And so maybe you can move it around. Maybe you can hold on to it and actually get a good, decent forward. Was my thought process there.
Yeah, it's one of those draft for not a BPA draft, but drafting for potential. And there's a handful of teams in this expansion draft where there's not really a lot for cards that can impact this season. So maybe you do go with a player who you think maybe has some upside in the next 2 or 3 years.
Right, because the only other guys I even saw on there were Martin Jones. He's just a name at this point. He doesn't even have a good card, and maybe Paul Byron, and I don't even remember much about him, but he's another
Yeah,
name.
yeah, I recognize the name, but outside of that, yeah, not much going on there.
Yeah.
But yeah, but like I said, Baltimore's one of those teams where it's a good team, similar to mine, where he's just the the amount of players that you protect and the amount of skilled players you have or important players you have just happens to just match up. Um, let's move on to Hartford here. What you got for Hartford?
Yeah, so I've always been a fan of Hjalmarsson. There's questions about whether he moves on to Sweden this year, I think, but even with I think what's a down year for I think he has a 43.88 card. That's still good. I would take him in a heartbeat. Uh,
Yeah,
there were some questions about Derek Stepan or Khudobin, but I really think Hjalmarsson is the choice there.
yeah, I would agree with you. I think I would go Hammer here. Real world, that he's won a couple cups and he's got a very solid card. Um, Stamina 6, that's fine for second line minutes, and 42-7, that's you're running relatively minimal risk of injury. But I mean that's 40, 43, 88. Great. You mentioned the Sweden thing. Not really
Yeah,
sure, but at least for this year, that's fantastic. And if he does happen to go to Sweden, you just you hang on to him or get rid of him, no big deal.
yeah,
You mentioned Stepan. That's a solid card when you're thinking middle six. I also thought there's, I mean, before I noticed that Hjalmarsson was unprotected, I was like, well, Stepan or Neal, and that's probably it. And then I looked at Khudobin, and Khudobin kind of alternates between monster cards and then down cards. So he's kind of he's down a little bit, but there's always a chance that he goes back to his form from 2 3 years ago and comes out with a 70-70 card or something like that. So I would keep my eye on that. But I think Hammer, that's the pick to make here from Hartford.
yeah. It it's not like Hartford had a lot of choice in that too, because there's some good names on his protected list.
Yeah, I would agree. It's one of those you gotta you gotta trim some fat somewhere for this expansion, and some guys don't fit into that. You've only got so much room in the bucket, and some guys fall out of it.
Yep.
Moving on to Cornwall, Crusaders here.
Mm.
Uh, so this is the first team where we've really got a kind of a handful of goalies, right?
Okay.
There's a handful of goalies that are unprotected where they could go either way. Like Cam Talbot got starting time this year, and you got Darcy Kemper down in Arizona who's looking good. He's got hit some flashes. The cards aren't what you would want them to be for a starting goaltender, but I think goalie cards are a little down across the league, which is fine. Um, so Cam Talbot, Darcy Kemper, even Zach Foucault, I don't think he's really panned out however I thought he would be. So I would probably pass on that. But you've also got the big fish out there, the first real name that I was like, wait, what? He's exposed, but I think it comes down to cap, and that would be Jakub Voracek. And I think that would be my pick here, without a doubt. If he's available, like I said, there's gonna be edits and stuff. So if Cornwall changes, sorry, Oregon, uh, that's gonna happen. Don't blame the messenger. Don't shoot the messenger. But I would go with Voracek here.
Uh, I think the same thing here. It's a pretty big cap hit, but I think you can pretty easily take that on. If it does change, there's still a ton of goalies that he has available, and it's a really good shot that those cards are going to go up. You hold on to it for a year, and then figure out what you want to do with it when that card comes back up.
Yeah. But I would agree. This is probably where Voracek goes if he's exposed, because I mean that's a hell of a card. Cap hit is a bit the stomach, and that's probably why Cornwall's looking to take the risk of losing him. Is and I'd lose him, but at the same time I also get 8 million back, and just in time for every free agent on the planet to be available this offseason. So um, probably something going on there. If I could get rid of Cap to make some big splashes, I would too. Um,
I mean, there was a forward and the name was Gene Knott. Um, and I think the reason for that is because it sounds like he's coming up through a system and might be exposed for the expansion draft. So either way, either he gets moved out to Seattle or he gets pushed up the depth chart by somebody else getting picked up.
Yeah, that's another case of taking the potential over the impact card right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, good point, but I think it's Voracek. I think that's a slam dunk.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Um, let's go into at Iron Deck. Go up to check out what the Aces have going on. My three that I kind of picked. So first one I saw was Kevin Shattenkirk. He's kind of had a little fall from grace, but he still has a decently usable card. 52-72. Um, stamina 7. If you pair him with somebody who's you know either highly offensive or highly defensive, it might kind of balance out and they can kind of gel well together. We've seen that happen in the GHL in the last couple of years, where you have guys with high offense mesh very well with guys with high defense. And sometimes those guys who are kind of close with offense defense that are relatively close together in the 50s, 60s, 70s, those guys seem to respond well to playing with either a high defense or an high offensive guy. So Shattenkirk was one of the guys I saw. I think this is where you either come across another goalie, being James Reimer, or you go for the depth guy with a fantastic card in terms of defensive playing from the forward position. That'd be P.E. Belmar. Um, not much for stamina. Second PK, 65 offense.
Pretty good
61
card and
defense,
ride it for a
and I
bit.
think that he's
And Hmm?
how old is Reimer now? He's been around the league for a minute. He's 33. Jesus,
yeah.
we're getting old. Um, yeah, I mean he's still got he's still got something left. There's a chance he rebounds and has a 65 card or something like that. So I would probably go Reimer here, but PE Belmar would be my dark horse for a nice little a nice little piece to for your bottom six.
And so now after that, we move on to you though, and
Hey, this is
there
ugly.
it's a black hole in Colorado right now. But I mean, there's a couple names that we looked at, and I think Okposo was the first name that jumped out. He's on a really low cap hit. It's 500K, I think. Oh wait, no, that was for a different guy that I was looking at. Okposo is probably a little higher. He has a
He's
63.47.
450.
Oh, is he?
Yeah,
He was.
450K.
Uh, I thought that was a mistake for a second. Nope, correct. 63.47 card. You might as well pick it up. Uh, write it for this year, and then you know, he either keeps going in the league or you get rid of it. Pretty easy.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Oregon. I really didn't give you much to work with. I had 8 slots and I have 8 players that are worth a damn. So you can really just pick the litter for everything else. It's kind of a bargain bin. Maybe if you can find something that's good for 1 year, or maybe something with a little bit of upside down the road. I was thinking Okposo or Richardson. They've got relatively identical cards, and the key is there that Okposo's got a much lower cap hit. So if that's a factor at that point, then you go with that. Um, Richardson tends to have decent defensive numbers. This year he's at a 47, which is a little bit lower, but Other than that, I really don't see anything else. Um, there is Lane Patterson, but he only got a handful of NHL games this year. But he's a 61-36 card at also sub 500K, so that's another bargain bin pick right there. But other than that, I mean, there's really nothing that's going to impact a team above the fourth line, really, in my opinion. Um, yeah, not
Yeah.
much going on. Oh wait, there's one more. Digizeppi.
Oh,
Digizeppi. I think he's New York, but he can play either wing. He's another one. 62 offense, 38 defense. How much does he cost? He's a UFA next year. He's under $1 million, so he's another one of those guys. Really, just put all three of those names on a dartboard and just throw one.
yeah.
Yeah, close your eyes and just see what you hit.
Yeah. Uh, Try and figure out which position you need to cover for at this
Yeah,
point.
I would probably if I'm game planning this, I'm picking from Colorado last because it just kind of like what hole do I need to fill with
Yeah.
with this crap from this team.
Which minor leaguer can I most quickly pick up?
Oh man, it's so embarrassing. I've got nothing other than I'm so top heavy. I've got 6 players and nothing else.
Yeah, we have a little bit of a dearth of exposures here in the next couple, I think. Speaking of which, what are you thinking about New York,
New York,
the
and
American?
that's the Americans. It's one of those teams where he has red EEs all over that roster, where there's a ton of decent to good players that are protected and they're not going anywhere. Um, and then you've got your guys. You're looking at that list, and guys like Devon Tapes are like Jesus. What a pickup! Way to go there, Scotty. But in terms of who's left over, um, there's Radko Gudas, there's Jake McCabe, and was it Mikael Backlund. So all three of those guys are decent cards. Um, Varying cap hits. I think Backlund's at 6.5. So if that's a factor, you probably pass on him. But that's the one I went with because I've been going pretty heavy on defense. And I will continue to go heavy on defense going down my list here. So I'm gonna go forward here, Backlund. But I think you really couldn't go wrong with Gudis or McCabe if you're trying to get some to fill a spot somewhere else.
Yeah, that's totally fair. I think on this one I got a little bit of a wild hair and was like, I just want to save some cap on here because there's really not a card that I like. There's not a guy that I'm hoping comes up, and so I went with Jordan Osterley. He only has a 1.6 mil cap hit as a defenseman, um, and he only has a 54-61 card, but maybe you can throw him in on your third line every now and then. But I mean, you're gonna have enough defensemen, you probably shouldn't have to. So you just take the lowest cap hit.
I would if I'm going defense, I like that. But if I'm going defense, I'm going to take Gudis and just beat the shit out of everything that comes my way. 9 hit, 9 fortitude. He's going to bash everything.
Mhm. Yeah,
Uh,
and this is another team I think you put at the end and like, okay, what position do I need, or do I need to save cap?
yeah, you're probably right.
Because I mean, Scott put up a great team here and knows what he's doing, so he's not gonna leave you with anything.
Yeah, good points. So let's head on over to Motor City. Brand new uniforms, like the Bronco logo. We need a quarterback. But I digress. So looking at Detroit,
Better.
another one of those teams where there's one guy that sticks out like a sore thumb. You could go Riley or you could go Vetrano, but I think it's pretty clear here to go for just impact off of the expansion draft. I would go with Big Z there as a Chara. Can't believe he's still around, but here he is.
I think he's 58 or something at this point, but yeah, that was definitely an option. Vetrano was another one, Hala, but I went with Cal O'Reilly. Again, another cap hit. It's 100K. Move on.
And if I'm a fan of Oregon and you're the GM taking Cal O'Reilly when Zdeno Chara's out there, I'm gonna be ooh, I'd be mad at you. But
Yeah, I'm horrible with the older guys. Hey, how long am I gonna have you? I want you as long as possible. And if you're over 30 and he's 36, I think, in all reality or something. Uh,
Chara, he's
yeah. Oh
Jesus,
no, he is 40, isn't he?
he's old as shit, dude.
I think he is 40.
Old as shit, and he's 44. So old as shit in
Oh,
terms of hockey. I don't want to sound ageist, because
I
the other GMs here that we share the league with. I don't want to come off as I'm picking on anybody. 44 is nice and ripe and young. Still, guys, don't worry, you've got plenty of life left. But 44 in hockey, you know, holy crap! I remember it was probably 6 or 7 years ago. We were doing some trade discussions, and I balked at trading a first for Chara because I was like, man, this guy's going to be gone in a year or two. It's not really worth it. And I think he wound up getting traded to a team for first, and he's still around. So I'm eating some crow there, and he's still got a usable card. So I'm gonna have to take the L on that one.
yeah.
You were right. But yeah, I would go Chara.
It definitely wouldn't be a bad pick. I mean, you could do a lot worse. And
Yeah.
it's just the way
Speaking
I
of
like
wars,
teams.
speaking of
Right.
wars, nice segue. Let's move on to Seattle here.
Def-
Um, this team, this was difficult for me to figure out which one of your players I'm gonna kick out of Seattle because
None of them are over
90% of your
going.
players are 90% of your players I can't take for the expansion draft. Um,
Yeah.
we got a real like child factory going on here. Just
Hey,
there's nobody over 17 on your roster. Um, I would just I really struggled with this one. You got like good Branson, established player. AL okay card 3371, not great, but that's one of those ones where you can kind of plug and play where you want to. But I went with maybe a guy who needs to change the scenery in real life, and maybe he could take one in Seattle at Timothy Liljegren. Like maybe if he got a chance, he might actually develop like we thought he would. He's still only 22, so I wouldn't consider him a bust. He's got some upside. Um, so I think from your RFA pool that you've got unprotected, I would probably go with him and keep my fingers crossed and keep my eye on him in the NHL, see what happens.
yeah. I I definitely got talked into that one a little bit, but I do like the kid. And he's definitely my pick if I was the expansion team. Uh, he started to get some NHL games, which is nice. He was kind of earmarked for their first line there for a while, but now I don't really know what's going on with them. So it's kind of a weird situation. But I mean, I don't mind talking about a couple of the other guys there. Uh, we have a couple of forwards in Pearson and Svechnikov, both had not great years, but there's very big possibility for rebounds. Same with Zaboral, who was pretty high draft pick in Boston and could come back because he started playing quite a few games for them. But that's about it. There's not a whole lot of names there.
Yeah, you didn't really leave much left over for Oregon to take. So starting that rivalry off nice and hot. You don't get nothing from me. Um, Yeah, I like those points. I agree with you. It's probably Lojigan's probably my pick. Kid just needs to get out of Toronto, or maybe just get out of his own head because we all know Toronto is a hard place to play. The media is relentless. The fans expect uh, greatness out of everybody, and rightfully so. It is Toronto,
Yeah.
so he
And
just
every
needs
time he
to
comes up, he starts playing timid, and that's
yeah,
not
he's got to shake off those yips and just start playing. But
exactly.
moving on here, who's next? Is that St. Paul?
Yep.
Okay. I think this one, all I really the players I isolated for expansion are goalies. So um, Jonathan Quick and Maxim Legacy. Um, think Quick's the name. Maybe he rebounds. I don't really know what his situation is. I haven't really kept up. And I think Legacy is the younger one, so you could go either way. It's a toss up for me at this point, but I'm probably going goalie and hoping that and then maybe Quick rebounds and Legacy continues to grow.
That's fair. One of the names I think I had seen left off was Kyle Turris. Um, I know he has a really down card this year. He has 3 million cap hit.
That's
Uh,
the Nashville effect.
exactly.
Yeah.
You gotta maybe hope that he doesn't get protected this year and maybe goes to Seattle. I don't think that happens. Um, but it's a possibility. Um, you hope for something like that. Because he can be pretty good in the right system. The other one I think was Julius Honka, but I don't remember. I mean, I think he's still in the league, but it wasn't looking good last I'd heard about him. Maybe I'm wrong though.
Yeah. So either go with tourists and hope that Nashville remembers how to play offensive hockey.
There's a net at the other end.
Yeah. Or you can go for a goalie. This is another one of those teams where there isn't really much to choose from
Mhm.
in terms of what's left over after it's protected, because all the skill guys, those guys they're protected, nice and locked up. St. Paul had enough space in the bucket to fill all of his guys in, so that works. Oh, I didn't realize he had Adam Fox. Nice. What a player.
Another good team here coming up though is Alaska, right? Um, they have a decent goalie exposed, I think, in Murray. Uh, maybe this was the one that had two goalies up, and they needed to decide between one. But it was either that or Fleury, Hayden Fleury, I believe. And I think I would go with Hayden Fleury here as a defenseman. I don't know if he's still on his minor contracts or not, but pick him up and hope he just keeps plugging away.
Yeah, I think you make a good point with Matt Murray. Obviously, he's got a real down card, but he's had great cards in the past. So there's always the chance that he rebounds off of, was it injury? I can't remember, but just a down year. But I think there's a good chance he rebounds. Matt Murray a highly likely pick here, but you didn't mention him, and I had to just double check to make sure Alaska didn't protect him. But are we talking Colton Parayko here?
Oh, I
Uh,
hadn't
yeah,
seen.
shutdown defenseman, 58, 81, 7 stamina. Fortitude's a bit low this year at 6, but I think you run that risk and just take it. That's a solid defenseman right there. And that would probably be my pick. It'd be hard to pass up on Matt Murray, but with that card this year, I want impact players this year, and I can probably find a goalie somewhere else or in free agency, and I would go with Parayko.
Fair.
Yeah.
Um, moving on to another really good team here, with a good protected list, but even more guys who aren't able to be. We have Suffolk. What are you thinking here?
Yeah, you're right. I mean, the entire roster is just EE top to bottom. Um, there's a handful of players. I really struggled to kind of find someone who's kind of above the rest of the pack when it comes to the exposed guys, because, like you said, everybody who matters is protected or can't be drafted. So I am looking at guys like Connor Sheary, Tyler Bertuzzi, and Matt Greslick, and just because the card, 66, 70, that's decent offensive numbers. Defensive numbers are average, but 7 stamina, I like that. Of a defenseman with 66 offense, so I'm going to go with Matt Greslick here. Another defenseman, go figure.
But I kind of like the combo of either Sheary or Bertuzzi. Um, I think picking either one of those isn't a horrible option. There's also Gagner and Nemestikov. Um, it- they're all kind of depth guys. Is how I'm looking at it, and so pick one of those guys up. I'm thinking Sheary here.
Yeah, you could definitely go forward here if you're needing one. There's decent decent fodder for the bottom six, and then some of those guys like Bertuzzi's got it in him to be to have a better card. I think he's shown those signs that he's got an offensive game. He just he hasn't put it all together yet.
So maybe you put this one at the bottom again and just kind of try
Yeah,
and figure out
yeah,
what position you need.
yeah. You put him right up, put Suffolk right on top of Colorado at the bottom of the list. But yeah, this is another solid team with everybody's protected. It's one of those. So, I mean, there's a lot of players here, and you can't really pick any of them. So you just got to go with what you can get. Yeah, I think you're right. Shearer, Bertuzzi, those are good options. But yeah,
Wild
Presley.
card maybe is
Well,
Furlan.
yeah. Oh yeah. Furland. We don't know what's happening there, right?
Yeah. Maybe he comes back from his concussion issues, maybe not. If he comes back to Vancouver, I think, and I've talked about this with somebody before, like I think he could be a first line player in Vancouver, but he's got to get healthy first.
Right. Yeah. That's the big mystery. Is like some guys they just can't put it back together, and some guys when they're coming back from those brain injuries, it takes them a little bit, but they come back, and
Yeah.
so we'll see what happens there.
Maybe you can pick him up, stash him for 100K since he didn't play this year.
Right.
All right. On to Johnstown.
Yeah. Thanks
This one was
for thanks for that ass kicking this year in the playoffs. That sucked. Um, yeah, Johnstown is another one where this was tough. It's another one of those teams where uh, he was able to fit everybody that needed to be protected into that expansion list.
Yeah.
So I went with Dryden Hunt. And it's really a toss up for me. Dryden Hunt. I had Haig on there, and maybe Kincaid. Kincaid has probably the best goalie card out of all the exposed goalies. So that might be something for me there.
Yeah.
Just for this year, that 62.55 is probably better than you're going to get out of most of the expansion list.
Yeah. And so far, this is the only one I don't even have a name on here yet because I have 6 names, 2 for each position. You got Delzato, Bertuzzo, Nielsen, Hunt, Olmark, and Kincaid. So I mean, I'm agreeing with you as far as Hunt and Kincaid. Probably pick up one of those 2.
Yeah. All right.
I, huh?
And I think that's all we got there in terms of Johnson. You got anything else?
No, that was pretty much it. That
Yeah.
one's kind of wide open for me.
Yeah.
So
And
we move on to Chicago.
well, yeah, and again, hell of a run. Great pickups at the deadline, and just
Oh,
absolutely beat the shit out of me. That was depressing. I'm gonna need a drink. Yeah, to Chicago. Let's move on to Chicago before I lose my mental health.
yeah. So there was only one name that stood out to me, and it's only because this is another defenseman that I've really liked since I came into this league. He always has a great card. I think he was
You talking Yandle?
I am.
All
I think
right.
he was in Ottawa when I first picked up the team before we moved to Seattle. And I just remember his card always being solid. It's still solid. I think he's almost as old as Chara and still just kicking it around. So
He's
I'd take him.
I think he's the NHL's Iron Man right now. There's a bit of a um, controversy earlier in the year whether or not Quenneville would play him or scratch him and break the Ironman streak on a healthy scratch. And I
Yeah.
think they eventually caved. Yandel kept playing. I think he got. Did he get? I don't know if he got scratches here. And I think the Ironman record's still going. So good for him. And yeah, I think I would agree. Yandel's the guy for me here.
Mm.
Chicago's a tough one. It's there's really not a lot there.
Yeah.
Once you get past the top 3 or 4 guys, it's one of those teams. It got a little away from us in terms of as a GM. It just kind of someone's got to dust off the cobwebs and get to work here. I pitched Chicago to one of my buddies who's big into sim leagues and dynasty hockey, and he looked at it. He's like, "Ooh, I don't think I'm down for the work." So keep looking there. I'll try and convince him. But yeah, I think think Yandel's the guy here. 66 offense. Pair him with a stud stay-at-home defenseman, and just let him go to work.
And going off on a little bit of a tangent on that, I remember coming into Ottawa and we still had some guys on the roster, and I probably could have pushed for trying to go to the playoffs or, and I didn't. I wanted to totally rebuild, and I think it's taken 6 years to finally get somewhere worthwhile. So I could understand that that's gonna be a big job. Uh, but as far as Chicago, the only other 2 names I had were Merrill and Gardner. I really don't have too much there. What
Yeah,
about you?
I'm totally honest with you. The only player I wrote down for Chicago is Yandel.
Yep.
Toronto, it's another one of those teams where I think he managed to protect everybody that he wanted to protect.
Yeah.
Um, what I've got out there for go figure. I picked another defenseman here. I'm going to go with Dylan DeMello, 48-78, solid card. Not the best stamina, but that's a great card on your third pairing. The other 2 players I was looking at would be Jordan Martinook, decent line for the bottom 6, and Josh Archibald, again, decent card for the bottom 6. Low 60s, but okay defensive numbers for forwards.
Yeah, I think my idea here was take Martinook, but you also got Cody Aiken, or you just take a minor league guy, maybe a goalie, but because I think there are a couple there, but nothing that really jumps off the page. I would have probably taken Martinook.
Yeah, and I look at Eichel there with that 78 offense. He needs to get out of Buffalo. My goodness, he's going to explode if he goes somewhere else. So
Yeah,
hang on to him, Toronto. He'll rebound.
yeah. So I think that just about does it for this portion. We still got half the teams to go, and I
Yeah.
think as soon as we get those, we can try this again. Hopefully, we'll have uh the other little brat with us, right?
Oh yeah, Mike Washington. He's on vacation,
He's
so
not here. I don't remember
we're
his name.
gonna we're gonna just pretend he doesn't exist. Um, looking at the depth chart I've got here, I drafted 5 forwards and 8 defensemen. Sweet Jesus. But it's a Chara, Helmerson, Pareko, Myers, DeMello, and Yandel. That's not a bad top 6 for your defense.
Mhm.
Forwards need a little work. I think the best 2 forwards I picked were Backlund and Voracek. Everybody else is in the 60s. Caro, Hunt, and De Giuseppe. Um,
Yeah. I think I'm in the same boat there with you,
yeah, but that's a solid defense. If I'm an expansion team, I'm happy with that. You
right?
put a decent goalie behind that, and uh, you keep the goals down. You just got to figure out a way to put the puck in the net. But luckily, this is probably one of the best UFA years we've ever seen in terms of just the top end talent that's available. So,
Yeah.
and we can assume that there's a decent chance Oregon has a decent amount of cap space coming out of this, so you can sling some of that cash around, grab yourself a couple wingers or something like that, and just go to work.
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely. Uh, try and work the phones a bit. Move a couple of those defensemen.
Yeah, and he's no stranger to the league, so he knows what to do, and I think he's up for it, and we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
So
Uh,
yeah, we'll stay tuned for the rest of the lists here, and we can start to work on the second portion, and we'll get that out. And thanks for listening to us drone on here. We'll get the prime crew for the podcast back on at some point with Cleveland and Cleveland and those cats. This is your backup crew here signing off.
I hope your ears aren't bleeding too bad. Right.
Yeah, let
Have
me
a good
let
night.
me let me figure out how to get Craig to stop listening. He's our Discord bot that's been doing the recording for us, so I just got to turn him off here. All right, guys, we'll catch you on the flip side.